What's up, guys? We are back talking all about Nintendo and all about E3 and all about that good stuff with Andre Meadows. Andre, you've been at E3 a couple days now. This is day 2.
Yeah.
You've seen some stuff. What's your game of the show?
What's that?
What's your game of the show?
My gaming shelf?
Game of the show.
Oh, game of the show. Oh, I'm sorry. I'm trying to hear you through my pop star thing.
Yeah.
Yeah. I've mostly played Nintendo so far. I'm still checking out some stuff. But yeah, like I said, I'm really digging Star Fox Zero, and I'm a Mario fan, obviously, but Super Mario Maker, I'm just really excited about it. It doesn't bring anything like new as far as graphics or anything to the table, but just the concept of people being able to have this community to share all these levels. Just really, really, really is going to be awesome. I can't wait to play everyone's different levels, see people make levels. I think it's just going to create a really cool community online of people doing that kind of stuff. So, and I have to say, I'm also, even though that's already happened with the Smash Bros. DLC, I'm kind of interested in seeing how Nintendo continues with DLC, because we've noticed with many consoles, you usually get one Smash Bros. Game, you get one Mario Kart game or whatever. So I think it's going to be interesting to see them continuing a franchise by adding all this DLC, continuing to add carts or racers or levels, or continuing to add fighters and things like that, and sort of keeping the game alive. And it's nice because it's a completed game, and then you're getting all this stuff added as extras, as opposed to feeling like, oh, this should have been in the game already and stuff like that. So I think it's a smart move that they're doing.
Me too. I mean, I'm a huge fan of Nintendo's DLC and the way that they're doing it.
Yeah.
They're doing a little things differently with Smash Bros. Compared to Mario Kart. With Mario Kart, they had the packs.
Yeah.
They announced 2 different packs, and you can get both or just buy them separately.
Yeah.
And but Smash Bros. Is different because, thank you. They announced Mewtwo, and they said he was coming. And then they released him with all the Mii fighter costumes and all that stuff.
Yeah.
And then they teased Lucas is coming. But then at the Direct that just happened, they showed off Ryu and Roy, which is completely out of left field.
Yeah.
Can't believe he's back. But they released them, all these different costumes. There's like all these like the Tekken costumes and the Virtual Fighter and all this stuff. And it's like, this is what Smash Bros. Is about. It's just like little bits of history everywhere.
Yeah, yeah.
But what was weird to me is there's not like a package. Like it wasn't a DLC pack where you can just...
Well, you can. I downloaded it, yeah. So you can buy them separately, or they actually have bundles. Like with the costumes, you get all the bundles at once, and it comes at a discount. And with the recent one, you can get everything. You can get Ryu, Lucas, Roy, and all the costumes in one pack.
As one package, and it just has one price tag?
Yeah, yeah.
Okay, cool. Because when I was looking at it, it was like, and when they showed it in the Direct, they didn't make that clear, I don't think. It was very much just like, buy the costumes for $2.23.
Yeah, there's so many individual
like,
prices.
What the hell?
Yeah, no, I bought the second wave of costumes. I bought all of them, which I did. It's a number of them, and I think it was like $9 for all of them, for both Wii U and 3DS.
And 3DS. And that's the other thing, is the fact that the DLC, you can get it for both systems. And I'm like, I love that they said they were going to keep the 2 games parallel, and I love that they're still doing that. Like, every fighter on the Wii U is going to be on the 3DS, even though the 3DS version, isn't everyone's favorite.
Yeah,
like, I think it's a great game.
It's a good if you're on the go. I mean, if I'm at home, I'm gonna obviously play the Wii U, even if I have to, go to another room and take care of some stuff. I can still bring the gamepad with me. But if I'm on the go, if I'm on the plane or anything like that, the 3DS one works just fine. Yeah.
But I think that the Direct they did for Smash Bros. Is a really good sign for the future of Nintendo DLC. And they hint with Mario Kart. They announced the 2 packs, and we haven't heard anything since. And the fact that we didn't hear about Mario Kart DLC at this E3 kind of tells me that they might be done with that. And that might be all that we're seeing.
I would love to see them add some more.
Because I really loved how the DLC worked, where you get the 2 sets of new circuits. Like, that's awesome. That's a substantial amount of gameplay compared to what was launched with Mario Kart 8,
Yeah.
So, seeing Smash Bros. Now, they're releasing these new characters, these new stages, all this stuff. In it, they hinted that there's going to be more N64 levels coming back, like Mushroom Kingdom and Hyrule Castle. And I like that they didn't put a date on that, and they didn't say when.
Yeah.
They just said it's coming, because that shows there is more DLC. And we still have the roster, like the online voting thing of people going to choose.
Goku, right?
but what's awesome about that is I like that they had Ryu and didn't even make that big of a deal of it being Ryu, because I think a lot of people were voting for him, but adding him, this is the first new character we got for DLC. So that shows we're getting new characters as DLC, and also that shows that the third parties are totally open.
Yeah. I mean, even Microsoft had said that if they were interested in Banjo-Kazooie, that they could talk. Yeah. So,
I mean, that would be awesome.
Yeah,
it would be cool to have some cross-pollination
yeah,
between
but
the publishers.
I think that I honestly believe that should be a big part of Nintendo's strategy going forward.
Yeah.
How can we work with third-party companies to bring those franchises back to Nintendo? Because they do need the third-party support. That's a very clear thing. But being able to incorporate Nintendo into those third-party games, or to have third-party characters show up more in Nintendo games. So it seems like it's a thing of like where we're our own console, we're our own system, but we are open to other characters coming in. I think publishers would be something that publishers would get behind. I mean, seriously having Pac-Man, Mega Man, Ryu, and Sonic all in a game with Mario and all the Nintendo characters. I mean, that's something I never would have believed growing up, and that's in the reality today. And I made a video about it. And I played as Ryu fighting Duck Hunt. Yeah. And Ryu had a Tanuki tail. I like that's just like that's like a fan fiction.
No, exactly. It's pretty crazy,
that's the thing about Smash. I think that's so special and has been so special for so long, even without the third-party character inclusion necessarily, is that it's just a game. It's a fantastical kind of game. It's a game that's, I don't want to say strangely believable, but it's like you don't think twice that DDD's fighting Pikachu or whatever. Just, something about that makes sense. But you brought up something interesting that I'm interested in your opinion on, kind of being a Nintendo expert, is you were bringing up third-party and third-party support. What would you do if you were in charge? Right?
If I was Reggie.
And let's assume NX is let's just assume for argument's sake NX is a console or something like that.
Yeah.
How would you get the third parties back? Because I think a lot of the third parties probably feel pretty scorned at this point, not even frustrated, but just outright like not even interested anymore. So how do you get them back?
Yeah, that's a tough one because I think a lot of it just has to do with the technology. It's like if it's easier to port a game across consoles, you're going to do it. And from having the gamepad and having to make the changes based on that, I think it is difficult sometimes. And also, sometimes the graphic limitations of being able to take this game and being able to go like, okay, I can port this across the board. I can port this to PC or to PlayStation or an Xbox and then to Nintendo. So, I don't know if it's something where maybe Nintendo can be a little bit more hands-on with the development with companies, maybe, or there's a separate team that works on that. But I feel like that it would be kind of interesting to see if they can work with third parties to bring some good exclusive games that people would be fascinated by and interested in and put it on Nintendo. Not so much just direct ports, but that's also the problem with the sales. I mean, like Rayman was supposed to be a Wii U exclusive, and then the changes happen and things like that. And Lego City Undercover, which was a great game, a lot of people want to play, but they won't play it because it's only on Wii U. And so I think that is a difficult place to be. Is how do you get the game, particularly a third-party game, that makes people go, I gotta buy a Wii U just so I can play that.
Yeah.
So.
I mean, going back to what we were talking about with NX, like, I don't think this is what it would be, but like, what if NX is a platform that would make it so that you play Nintendo games on the other consoles, like
that would be
in some way. I don't even know how that would work, but like that would be very interesting, and that would solve the problem Nintendo has of these third parties because they just wouldn't need to worry about it. Just make games. I don't think Nintendo is going to leave the hardware or like console. Maybe they might leave the hardware world, but they might not leave the console world. Okay. I don't know what that means.
Well, maybe to me it's almost like maybe they leave the console world but not the handheld world. Since they obviously still have a viable handheld, it's underpowered and it doesn't matter, right? Mm-hmm. The Wii U's underpowered and it actually matters significantly because no one wants to bring games to it because they won't work. Even with was it Project Cars that they were talking about how it was running at 23 frames,
Cars.
Or one of those racing games where they were like, it's running at 23 frames a second on Wii U, like we can't get it to run.
Yeah.
And that's a frustrating thing. Like it doesn't matter on 3DS because a lot of games are made for 3DS.
Yep.
Right.
And so that's a different thing. But when you're an Activision and you want your game everywhere and you don't care, you're totally agnostic.
Yeah.
It's like, well, we're not gonna go through all this trouble to port to PS4 and Xbox One, which is simple for them, and then to Wii U.
You'd have to underpower it so that it fits everybody, or it's overpowered so much that you can't go back.
Exactly.
I mean, that is Wii U's biggest fault, is the fact that like it's not on par with the other systems. That was the Wii's biggest fault too.
Right.
And the biggest success of it is that the games that are made for it are only on it and they're special.
Yeah.
But that you don't get the Call of Duties, you don't get the Assassin's Creeds, or at least not like the right versions of them.
And or you get them late or something.
Yeah, you get like the weird spin-off, and which is funny because like you essentially are getting what was last gen's PSP version. The one that's like, oh well, here you go. Here's the other Prince of Persia game that you don't really want to play.
Right.
So it's upsetting that Nintendo is in the position it's in, but it's earned that position. Like they made their choices and they saw the success of the Wii, and I think they were kind of like, well, we're good. We're just going to do it again. But I don't think anyone up there really thought about, well, how are we going to do it again?
Yeah.
Oh, here's a gamepad. We'll figure it out at some point. And here we are, 3 years down the line, and there still isn't the game that's like, that's why I need a Wii U gamepad. That's why this system needs to happen. DS proved it within a year.
Yeah.
The Wii proved it,
Immediately,
right? And then it kind of faded down, but at least it had that, here's why you need it, right?
Yeah.
With the gamepad, it's like, Splatoon's great. It's really fun, but it's not that game where you're like, I need this. Star Fox, awesome. But all of us are like, just let me play.
Yeah. Like a lot of those games, you like them, but do you really need the gamepad? I mean, like even with Smash, they made an adapter so you can play it with the GameCube controller.
Yeah.
So I don't know. I mean, the thing about it is that a lot of times with the way Nintendo makes their games, sometimes they don't need as strong of a graphic capability for the stuff that they're making because they have all these different artistic styles that they do to the game. So I understand it why they don't really get too hard in that. But it would be nice to have a Call of Duty, a Tomb Raider, or any of these games on a Wii U console because I like Nintendo. I want to buy the Nintendo version of a game. I used to when they had the GameCube and all that stuff. I bought the GameCube version.
Yeah, and I mean
games.
that's the thing is that generation there was that option, and a lot of people wouldn't buy the GameCube version. They'd buy the Xbox or PS2 or whatever for specific reasons. And I feel like that generation was so fun because they were on par. Like the GameCube was weaker, but it's like it wasn't significantly weaker. And guess what? Soul Calibur 2 came out. Which system did everyone want?
Yes, so the Soul Calibur 2 on GameCube was
exactly.
Awesome.
Which I was saying, now that we're getting Street Fighter 5 and Ryu was in Smash Brothers, it'd be pretty interesting if they were able to sneak a Nintendo character into Street Fighter 5. I would love that. Like
little
Mac
switcheroo
or
on that. I don't know about that.
Which is then a PlayStation exclusive. Which would be totally interesting. But I mean, that's to all your guys' points. I mean, that's why I don't read too deeply into Wii's 100 million sold, because it's not so much. I mean, in the immediacy of the financial reality of it, you want to make your money, you want to sell games and hardware, and that's great. But it's more about what hooked you.
Yeah.
And clearly the hook for Wii wasn't there, right, after a while, because Wii U sales are, sub 10 million, so 1/10 of that after 2.5 years on the market. So, but I do feel bad for them in a sense that it seems like they can't please anyone with the gamepad specifically, because everyone's like, well, use the gamepad. And they're like, well, we did this, and this. And they're like, well, we don't want to use it like that. I'm like, well, at least they're trying, but maybe what it shows is that the gamepad was just an ill-conceived idea to begin with.
But I think that's what it is. It's like when we say use the gamepad, but then at the same time, we're like, well, don't use it in the games we actually want to play.
Yeah.
I think that is the correct statement, though. It's like, give me a new game I don't know about. Give me a Wii Sports.
Yeah.
Give me something that I'm not looking for. I don't want it in Zelda or Mario or Metroid or Smash Bros. I want it in this new experience that I'm going to get it and be like, oh wow. DS, like it had all of the like Professor Layton and all these things that were like, oh cool. Here's a new experience. Here's something new that I'm doing with the touchscreen and all this stuff. And DS was special because of that. It had these games that aren't on the other Nintendo consoles and all that. So.
Yeah, and I think that's the thing. I mean, I think as great as that gamepad is, I think that if they even came out the bat with, here's this new console, and you can use your DS, your 3DS as a controller, and those elements that we see on the gamepad are part of that. Just that alone, I think, would be something that people would get behind, because it's like we've already got this one console, now we can connect it with the other, and so it would work that way. Yeah, I feel like if there was a way to get whatever the next Nintendo console is onto the same level as the current consoles like a PS4 and an Xbox One, but again, add that element of Nintendo with their first-party games, add that element of Nintendo to third-party games.
Yeah.
Like that will be the thing, because everyone knows that the majority of what people like about Nintendo are those iconic characters, are those gameplay experiences that you can only get for Nintendo. So the only thing you need to do is bring the third party into it, have that third party be at the same level, and then keep that Nintendo incorporate it into it, and you're good to go. And then if you can have it where those even merge from time to time, I mean, as silly as it was, having like was it a Tekken tag tournament where you had like the mushrooms and stuff in it, like that just makes it different.
Yeah.
So I feel like that's something that Nintendo could use to their advantage. They have these characters that are exclusive to them, and they could use that to make the gaming experience on Nintendo a different experience than the other consoles if they can get the hardware to match it.
Yeah. Well, let me ask you guys a question. As people who Nintendo has touched very deeply, like, it is part of our lives and like part of who we are.
Oh, yeah.
Would you, if you had your ideal world where you got to decide what happens, would you rather Nintendo bow out of the console making, like doing what they're doing and just making games for the other consoles, or would you rather them release the next console that is up to par with the other systems?
I would like up to par. I would be very sad if the day ever came that Nintendo said we're just going software. I mean, I was bummed when Sega did that. It's just like that's an era that is now done.
Yeah.
And poor Sonic is just like and on the street,
Yeah.
begging for coin, begging for rings, and and stuff. So I would love for them to still be in it, but I don't know. I don't know if them not being at the same level technically, if that's a choice.
Yeah.
If they have the capability of doing it and they're just not doing it, or if they literally do not have the manpower to do something like that. But
Yeah.
I would love to have the next gen Nintendo right along the next gen PlayStation and Xbox, and then, like I said, be able to add that Nintendo experience to it.
Yeah, see, for me, I think I'm on the other side, and that hurts
really?
me to say because I don't even want to think of a world where Nintendo isn't a video gaming system.
Yeah.
But I think that they don't need to have that console for it to be what I want, and that's what I really need to admit to myself is the fact that if they were to just make games for the other guys and not have to worry about all this stuff, I'd get more of what I want. I would get more good games. They wouldn't need to focus on all their divisions and stuff, working on consoles and hardware and 3DS and all this stuff. They'd be able to just make more Mario, Metroid, Star Fox. We'd get F-Zero.
Oh, okay.
We'd get these smaller things because they'd have not only more like resources to work with making them, but also more places to put them on different levels. Like F-Zero, all right, maybe it's not going to make sense as a commercial like retail game, but guess what? That on PSN could be great. Could
you see them being like they're like a Steam basically? Could they be like a Nintendo service where you can play online?
Well, that's what I hope NX is.
Cloud,
I hope that this happens because it'd be really interesting. And then with them not having to worry about the third parties and stuff because that's just the thing, and not giving the people that choice they have to make between, do I buy an Xbox One and invest or a PS4 and invest?
Yeah.
Just being like, we're Nintendo, we make games. And I think there's a key difference between Nintendo and Sega. Like, I love Sega. As a 90s kid, Sonic holds a place in my heart for sure.
Yeah.
But at the end of the day, there hasn't been a bad Mario game.
Right.
There hasn't, I mean, I was going to say there hasn't been a bad Metroid game. There hasn't been a bad Metroid game. People don't like Other M, but it's not bad.
Right.
Zelda, there hasn't been a bad one. So I think that like Sega, it has bad games.
Oh, yeah.
And to say the great games, there are many of them, but it's not Nintendo. Nintendo's great.
Yeah, and I also think that the financial realities of Sega at that time, they released the Saturn, it bombed. They really couldn't afford another failure. And Dreamcast, as much as we loved it, was a failure. It was a commercial failure. It came out too early. People were waiting for PS2 at that time. I mean, I bought my Dreamcast, but a lot of people at that time didn't. But I'm kind of with you in the sense that Nintendo was structurally built as a hardware and a software company, and I respect that. And they made great hardware at one point in their history, and it wasn't necessarily about power. It was about the games.
Yeah.
And that's the salient thing is that the games, the special sauce is not in the hardware. It never was in the hardware because Wii was a great system, but it proved it with a game. It didn't prove it wasn't self-evident.
Yeah.
So a year ago or even 6 months ago, if you were like, Colin, Nintendo's going to make PS4 games now or Xbox One games, I beg you're out of your mind. Now with this DNA thing and all this kind of stuff, I'm like, I don't really think that's that far-fetched anymore.
Yeah.
Like, I think that if they want to make a Mario game and sell 3 million copies, they put it on Wii U, right? If they want to sell a Mario game for 15 or 20 million units, they would put it on PS4 and Xbox One.
Yeah,
and that's they would if that happened and if they got in bed with one of the console manufacturers, which I think would be actually Xbox and not PlayStation, because of the bad blood that goes back to the early 90s between Sony and Nintendo, that would be massive.
Yeah. Now,
massive stuff.
I think the final pillar that is the reason that I would prefer Nintendo to leave the console game is the fact that, okay, the special sauce is the games, but the other special sauce in Nintendo is the creativity of doing something new. You know, the gamepad or the motion controls and all that stuff. But what really would be awesome to see is PlayStation and Xbox right now. We have the HoloLens, we have Oculus, we have Move, we have all this stuff that really, I mean, we're seeing cool things for, but it's like, specifically with Morpheus, it's like, all right, where's the thing that's going to make this
Nintendo
necessary?
could do something really
Nintendo
cool with
could
that.
come in there. Nintendo could do that, you know?
Yeah.
And if Nintendo didn't have to worry about making a console and having all these third parties to do it, all that, and they could just worry about making the system seller for Morpheus, making that something worth playing.
Yeah. So maybe the happy medium is that it's something, it's maybe like I said, it's like a Steam thing, it's like a service Nintendo basically takes their console digitally, and then you can get all the games through there, and then whatever that like you might basically like an app, and you can then play that on PC. You can play that on PS4. You can play that on Xbox One or whatever makes it available. So it's still Nintendo in its self-contained area, still doing its own thing. You just now, because it's digital, you have access to it on other platforms, including, since they're going mobile, I feel is a possibility.
Exactly.
So they're not necessarily saying we're going to make PS4 games, we're going to make Xbox One games. We're going to make our games. We're still going to make them. Just now, instead of it being on this console, it's now on this digital app that you can now put anywhere.
Right. And now what's really interesting about that, and this is something that is would be really crazy and people would have to wrap their heads around, but Amiibo. There's potential there where it is digital, but if you want to buy that physical good, the console could be Amiibo.
Yeah.
You know? And if they could finally figure out making that be something that's substantial and it was the games, I don't know if adults would want to be buying all these toys or stuff. The general
they seem
adult.
to want to buy them right now.
So far, it seems to be fine.
But I'm saying the millions out there.
Yeah.
The rest of the world, not just the hardcore.
I think that's the way. I think their next console should be an Amiibo. It should be a giant shaped Amiibo, and everyone would buy it.
That would definitely be Nintendo's the way to win next year.
The one thing that's certain with Nintendo right now to me, and it happened with the DNA announcement and it happened with all these things, is this is a company, as we said earlier, that's finally starting to change. And they realize that they must change because there's a lot of chatter about all the money they have in the bank and stuff. It doesn't matter. That money can disappear in a few years if they don't start selling lots of games again. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And that's just the reality of the situation.
Oh, yeah.
Especially with the R&D going into hardware and all that stuff. I agree with you. It's like an amazing dream to think that they could take a system as powerful as PS4 or Xbox One and put Mario on it. You know what I mean? And just don't worry about the extraneous stuff. Don't worry about the hardware. Don't worry about selling hardware. Don't worry about it. Make the game.
Yeah.
You guys, they would take over the world. I really believe that they would be the Nintendo that we miss so much. Yeah. And I think there is a significant level of stubbornness, and I don't necessarily blame them.
Yeah.
Because they think they can reclaim that old glory. But the Wii is the anomaly, as I've said many times. NES sold this, SNES sold below that, N64 sold below that, GameCube sold below that, now Wii U sold below that. That is basically a trend with one anomaly. Yeah. So they need to, and the same thing with their handhelds, with the exception of DS, which is the anomaly. Then 3DS obviously really struggled until they just slashed the price significantly. So there is, I feel like, and I know a lot of Nintendo fans get mad at me. I have draw the ire of a lot of Nintendo fans, as you know, but I'm just talking as a lapsed Nintendo fan that would love nothing more than for that company to destroy everyone again. Yeah. But I do believe it is as a publisher of games.
Yep.
Yeah.
Me too. And I do think that in addition to the publisher of games, it is helping create and form the hardware with the other guys, using their resources and their money and the creativity and brains of Nintendo and just the games on it. That could be, just thinking about it gets me so excited.
Yeah, but that, going back to the stubbornness, I think that is something that is going to have to see if that can happen. Will Nintendo be open to work with other companies? Will the other companies be open to working at Nintendo after certain things have happened? So, in an ideal world, I think that would be great. I mean, in an ideal world, I would like for all of them to work together because I feel like the whole console separation gets a little crazy from time to time. But, it's just I just don't ever want to see that brand go away. And I think that's what we're kind of saying here is that whether it's another console, whether it's going through the other consoles or having a separated app or something like that, you just don't want that brand to die. Yeah. And that is the concern is if they go a route where it's still not working and it starts to go down, eventually the brand dies out. Mario can be a great icon, but if the console that it's on is not selling, it's still going to mean that less and less people over the course of time are not playing those games and not having that relevance to them like we have had in the past.
I mean, I think Sega is a perfect example of that. Sega is something that is not gone, but it almost is.
So I say make Boom out of everything. Mario Boom, Zelda Boom, Metroid Boom.
Good Lord, no.
I want to ask you this question because this is something that Tim and I talk about sometimes, kind of being more kind of funny. It's kind of resident Nintendo kind of people, or especially Tim, obviously. What dormant IP would you want to see come back, or what IP would you want to see Nintendo kind of do something with? Because I often think about two IP myself that I'm surprised or have been dormant for a long time. One is Star Tropics, which I think that they could do something clever with. But the other one that I'm actually really interested in, and people make fun of me for this, is Ice Climbers. I feel like they could a AAA open world 3D platformer.
Well, we saw it.
Yeah.
We just saw it at Microsoft's thing. The Tomb Raider?
Oh, yeah. Close enough.
Yeah.
What
So
do you
he's like a brother, like
You brought up-
Larry
you
Croft.
brought up Balloon Fight before. Duck Hunt's obviously been dormant. I mean, there's just all these random IP littering the historical landscape of Nintendo.
Yeah.
What would you want to see come back?
I really, honestly would love to see a nice next-gen F-Zero. I think that I mean, the Mario Kart is great. I love it. I love that they even incorporated some F-Zero in there. Well, Captain Falcon needs to ride again, and I just think I just really feel. And then I thought, if I'm not mistaken, I thought I saw some game that I was like, it kind of looks like F-Zero, but it wasn't that they were doing. But yeah, I really would love to see a nice, good, quality F-Zero.
Why
game.
haven't they released an F-Zero game in so long? GameCube was the last one, right?
GameCube was the last one.
Yeah.
I think there was an arcade one after that, but it was
Yeah,
like
there was an
the same
arcade
thing.
There must be a reason, and the reason is probably it's the same thing we always talk about Metroid, where everyone's like, "Why isn't Retro working on Metroid?" I'm like, "Because Metroid sold like less than 10 million units in its entire history."
Yeah,
That's
people
why.
forget about that
Well,
kind of stuff.
here's the thing, like, to answer your question about what dormant franchise do I want to see back, I think F-Zero is a good answer, but I'm going to throw a twist in there. I don't want the racing game. I mean, I do want that. But what I want to see is a Captain Falcon game. Like, I want to see like maybe like a third-person action game, God of War style,
with racing elements in it.
Yeah, exactly. If there was racing, but there also was like more of like a third-person action thing, because Nintendo's kind of lacking that like kind of just like.
Well, and a lot of people know Captain Falcon from Smash now. You know, like a younger generation. So if you can sort of incorporate his fighting style as well as the racing into it, that could be a very interesting game.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I would love to play as Captain, especially the Captain Falcon we have now. Yeah, I would totally be down for that. I like it. Captain Falcon, the game.
It would be good, man. It'd be real good. And for me, my other answer, Star Fox, and it's here.
Yeah.
Finally, you know. And I'm happy to look at this game and be like, this is finally a real Star Fox, because the last one that I really loved was Star Fox Assault. Not a great game on the GameCube, but it had elements, and like I loved the story. I loved that Star Fox has always been the Star Wars of the Nintendo universe. It's always kind of been the thing that had a story. It had a universe that has never really been seen that much. Like it's way too detailed for the fact that it's a on-rail shooter. You know, the whole backstory of Fox's dad and like Pigma betraying them and all this stuff. It's like you find out so much about these characters just flying, just from the little words popping up, you know?
Yeah.
And Assault kind of took it a step further with fleshing it out and like creating that world a bit more. And to come back to it, and like from what I've seen, I'm like, they're expanding on that. Thank you.
Yeah.
And there's no on-foot missions.
Yeah.
Yes.
And they use voices. That's always nice too.
Yeah.
Because Nintendo likes those words, you know, the voices.
Well, I know you were waiting for Star Fox Adventures too, so I'm sorry that's
not
specifically.
No, I mean, I don't want to hate on Star Fox Adventures because it is awesome. Like
I love it too.
That game's very special to me, but my favorite part of it was the air missions, you know, and they're very limited. The final boss was Andros, you know, like, and it wasn't on an air mission, so
absolutely.
I'm definitely waiting for some more of that.
Another question I like to ask, and we've talked about this hypothetical. I want to still do this in a full-fledged kind of way on Kind of Funny.
Yeah.
I want to do kind of like a publisher draft with all the developers, where like what publishers make sense in the first parties for all of them. For instance, Sony has 2 racing developers. They probably don't need 2 racing developers.
Yeah.
What developer out there that you see making games outside of Nintendo's ecosystem do you think would make sense for Nintendo? And let's say, in other words, in a total fantastical kind of thing, if Nintendo could go like, we want to buy this developer.
Oh yeah. Well, I've said it since Smash. I think Nintendo needs to get Sonic from Sega. They need to get Mega Man from Capcom. They need to bring them into the family, make them distant cousins, and let's see what they would do with those properties. Because there's some love that needs to be made for those characters, and I feel like Nintendo having that retro nostalgia with them, and knowing how iconic those characters are, could do something really great with them.
Yeah.
You know,
I never even thought of a Nintendo Sonic game.
Yeah.
How to fix Sonic? Give it to Nintendo.
Yeah,
I like
exactly.
That.
How to fix Sonic? Put Sonic away forever.
No,
that's how you fix Sonic.
No, it's definitely not.
Jesus, God
Sonic
Almighty,
must live.
stop
We need to
already.
figure out this Sonic conundrum.
He's the same way. He's like, well, he's been around for so long, and you know, you just want something.
But why?
You
That's
want
what I
so
keep
good.
asking.
Definitely.
Sometimes I wake up from nightmares in the middle of the night, and I'm like, why does Sonic still exist?
Sonic must live forever.
Yeah.
Andre, thank you so much
Thank you for
talking
having
to
me.
us
This was
about
fun.
Nintendo.
Yeah,
Thank you so much.
Nintendo will never
guys.
die. Ladies and gentlemen, we're kicking off to Chloe Dykstra and Nick Scarpino. Stay tuned.